Hello, my friends. Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa String Works Workshop. And I forgot to turn on my lights this morning. Let me just do that real quick. Not that it's going to make a whole lot of difference. And of course, that one's turned on in the wrong mode, which it never does. Oh my gosh. Just not easy being me. Okay. Not that that's any better or any worse, but at least they're on. The title, Can You Identify My Furry Friend? We're going to get to that in a minute. The only clue I'll give you is that there are many hunters. In fact, I've known a whole bunch of hunters that have never even seen one of these creatures. And I have seen quite a few of them here on the farm. So those are my only clues, and you'll get to see that here in just a minute. Before we get into that, I just remind you that if you want to pose a question or a comment this morning that you want me to recognize here on the vlog, be sure to put some question marks in front of it. That helps me out. I can find it much faster. So, in other words, start the question with a few question marks rather than put them at the end. But either way, if you put several, I'll see it probably. Well, I'm still not seeing any deer. I have set out 11 times now, and keep in mind that's about 2 hours per set on average. A couple a little longer, a couple a little shorter probably, but about 2 hours per time, and that's so approximately 22 hours I've set out in the woods and haven't seen one single deer moving around. That's got me worried, I got to be honest. Well, at the jam at the Dickey's barbecue pit last Tuesday night, Gary says to me, he says, "How are you seeing any dead deer on the farm?" And I said, "Well, none that are intentional, that's for sure." And he went on to explain that a friend of ours, Bill Wiemeyer, who also plays music, and now I think about it, I might get him on the channel for one of our live shows before too long. Anyway, Bill Wiemeyer is a farmer, and he's found a number of dead deer on his farm. And, you know, this next part of that information, that part of the information I believe 100%. The next part of the information, I'm not so sure. I kind of take it with a grain of salt because people tend to exaggerate things. But he said that nothing is eating the dead deer either. He says the buzzards aren't eating them, the coyotes aren't eating them, etc. And he said he's seen several. Well, you know, I wasn't too concerned about that because I haven't seen any dead deer laying around on the farm here so far, and I've been out quite a bit. So you'd think I would have seen one or smelled one or something. But then last night I was mentioning that to JR, and he goes, "Well, I found two dead ones on my place." Well, his is right next door to me, so I mean that's close enough to count, you know. And he's found two dead ones. One of them was in the, you know, edge of dying, and then another one he found dead a day or so later. The one was still alive when he found it. He had the conservation come out, and conservation agent gave a lame answer that it was hit by a car. Well, we're a mile and a half from the closest road. It wasn't hit by a car. I mean, it's ridiculous when people make these stupid statements like that. You know, he just didn't want to do his job and investigate it is really what it boils down to. So JR called him back and says, "Well, you know," he says, "that deer that got hit by a car, I guess another car's been out here because I found another dead deer." But he left that message on the guy's recorder. You know, I tell you, it's pitiful that people won't do their job. It gripes me in ways I can't explain. But anyway, so I am concerned. I haven't seen a deer one other than, I mean, I've seen two deer. I've seen one in my backyard, or right in the backyard of our house. And then I jumped one on the way back from a stand one evening going back to my Polaris Ranger. And you might say, well, then that's proof that there's deer out there. Well, yeah, but typically I would see 2 or 3, 4 or 5 deer almost every time I set out, and I would see them on the way to and from the stand, like driving through the woods. Like this morning, coming back through the woods, I drove the whole way through the woods, did not jump one single deer, did not see a tail. Typically, you see the flags, which is the white tail, bobbing like this going through the woods, and nothing. So I don't know. I'm a little concerned about it. I kind of think there could be a problem. We know we've had CWD get into Missouri now, and we know some of the surrounding counties were identified as CWD counties. CWD is chronic wasting disease. The deer, I don't know exactly the whole science behind it, but it kills the deer. Let's just say it that way. And so it could be something like that. People get on me a lot and they say, oh, you make all this stuff up about disease and stuff. Those coyotes aren't diseased and, this and that. And I mean, I've had all kinds of flack about that. Trust me, when animals get populated and overpopulated, Mother Nature takes care of it in the cruelest of ways you can imagine. They starve and die and just get these all kinds of craziness. About 15 years ago, roughly, I'm going to say, maybe not quite that long, maybe only 8 or 10 years ago, because my memory isn't any good for remembering dates like that. But a while back, we had a bout of what they call blue tongue disease on deer, and we were finding them left and right out in water. That caused them to go to water, and we were finding dead deer in the creeks and next to ponds and things like that. Even find them in the river. We're finding dead deer all over the place back then. So it could be something like that again. It's got me worried that there's a problem, because typically this is the second longest time I've ever set out in the woods without seeing deer. And I told you the first time was because I carried the camera with me, and for 30 days in a row I never saw a deer. Not one deer while I was carrying the camera. As soon as I put the camera away, deer just popped up like crazy. Just saw them everywhere. So I don't know what the deal is this time, but there's something wrong. I can just feel it down deep. It ain't right. Well, here's my view this morning from the stand. Before we show you the furry little critter, we'll just let you see where I was sitting. And this is where I was sitting this morning. I did the furry friend I saw last night in the same stand. So just so you know that this is related. You can probably tell there that I was sitting in a cedar tree. We call that the cedar tree stand. It's up on a high ridge, and it's a high percentage stand. I mean, like when you sit there, I'd say 8 out of 10 times you're going to see a deer when you sit there under normal conditions. I've sat there 3 times this year so far and have not seen a deer. So that makes me wonder, because like I said, 8 out of 10 times you typically see deer there. So it's got me concerned. So let me set up how the furry friend came to be that I saw. Last night I was sitting in that same stand, And I had been using the doe bleat. Oh, and I had intended to bring that with me to show you that and let you hear what it sounds like. But anyway, it's a can, and you put your finger over the hole to close it up. You turn it over, and it sounds like a doe. It makes kind of a little bit of a goat sound. It's kind of a bleat, bleat, like that. It's just kind of a bleat sound. And anyway, it is the sound of a female deer, and often bucks will come to that. So I was doing that last night. I had the can, and I bleated a few times, and I hear something come running toward me and from behind, but I could hear it very distinctly through the leaves come, and it was running. I could tell that. So I thought, well, that's a buck. So I instantly stood up real careful, grabbed my bow, and I turned to my left because it sounded like it was going to come to my left. And I had my bow, and I wasn't pulling back or anything, but I had the bow ready. And just in case it was a big buck or something. And anyway, then I could tell it was going to go to my right instead. So now I'm facing to my left, and I have to turn all the way around. And when I turned all the way around, I could hear it. It was still coming. And I thought, okay, here it comes. It's going to be a buck coming right down this trail, and I'll be able to shoot it, or have a shot or opportunity. Then again, it could be a tiny buck, or it could be a doe, or it could be anything. And so I wasn't, you don't get over anxious. You just know that you've got a chance, and that's what I was thinking. Well, then no sooner than I get turned all the way around to that side, I saw what it was. And so now I'll let you see what it was and see if you can tell me what it was. Okay, well, most of you are getting it. It is a bobcat. And a bobcat is a killing machine. Now, you see that little thing, and that looked pretty small. And that one was, on average, a small bobcat. I'm not going to tell you any different. It was kind of a small one. We get them here a little larger than that, and then we get them here quite a bit larger than that. In fact, I would say that one was, maybe only just a little bigger than half as big as the big ones get. The big ones get pretty big. And they are probably the most efficient killing machine ever designed in nature. I mean, designed by God. I'm telling you what, they are a killing machine. Now, you think that doesn't look like that could be very powerful. I'm telling you right now, and you can take this to the bank, they are all muscle and all teeth and claws. And when they grab a hold of something, typically it don't get away. I mean, I'm not saying it never happens, because it could happen. But typically, once they get their claws on something, it's going down, period. There ain't no two ways about it. And you might think that little thing there couldn't take down a deer. But I'm going to tell you for sure, black and white, 100% knowledge, first-hand knowledge, they can take down a deer. Now, maybe that little one there, that one was a little bit on the small side. He might have a little tougher time. But on a small deer, a young deer, or like a small doe or whatever, no question, he'd take it right down. A big buck, maybe not. But the very first experience that we had with a bobcat here, JR was the one that had the experience, and he was driving down our county road in his old rattle beat-up pickup truck, and out jumps a bobcat out of the ditch line next to the road and up on the road, and he said it just snarled at him, like, just looked at him and just kind of, growled like, and roared, or whatever you want to call it, and then took off. And he said it was covered in blood. He said the bobcat just had blood all over it. So, now me, I'm so colorblind. I might have noticed that there was something dark on the bobcat, but I wouldn't have been able to tell it was blood. So anyway, he got out of the truck and he looks down in the ditch, and it was a freshly killed spike buck. In other words, it had spikes, like say 4, 5, 6 inches tall. It was a young buck. In other words, it wasn't a mature buck. But this bobcat had jumped up and grabbed that buck by the throat and tore the whole throat out of the buck. So can they take down a deer? Yeah, they can take down a deer. No question about it. I'll tell you another true story. I have shot about 3 or 4 bobcats here. We have seen lots of them. And any real knowledgeable woodsman knows that if you're seeing a lot of bobcats, then you have like 5 or 10 times as many as you see. It's crazy. They can stay hidden so well. Lots of hunters go through their whole hunting career, their whole life, and never see a bobcat. They're very elusive, very good at hiding. Anyway, a true story. I shot a bobcat. The very first one I shot, I took it to have it mounted, and it was legal. I do everything by the book. That's why I wouldn't shoot this one last night. It's not open season on the bobcats right now, so I didn't even think about shooting it. Although I could have very easily, because that bobcat was less than 15 yards away directly under me, and all I had to do was pull back and he was mine. I mean, there was no doubt I could have got him, no question about it at all. Well, anyway, I took this first bobcat I shot to the taxidermist, and I had it in a feed sack. And, I was excited to see what the taxidermist was going to say about it. And the taxidermist grabbed the sack with one hand, and he reached in with the other hand, and he pulls this bobcat out. And one of the claws on the bobcat hooked his finger holding the bag and ripped his finger open. He had to go get stitches. Their claws are like razor blades. I am not exaggerating. If they grab a hold of something, it's over. It's curtains. And they're so powerful. They're just solid muscle. There's like nothing but muscle and teeth and claws. And they are a killing machine. Efficient like you just have no idea. And that's why, like a mountain lion, you just put your head between your knees and kiss your rear end goodbye, because you're going down. You ain't got a chance. They're just solid muscle, teeth, and claws, those kinds of animals. And most efficient killing machine ever. But anyway, it's pretty neat to see one of those. And like I said, I'm not kill happy. I don't want to kill everything I see. I just try to help control the numbers, because we don't have wolves anymore. Wolves would take down things like that, keep the numbers in check. If nothing else, wolves keep them run out of the area, that kind of thing. And the same way with coyotes. We don't have anything to keep coyotes in check anymore. So I want to keep them in check a little bit. But I don't want to kill them all. I love bobcats. I love coyotes. Whether you believe it or not, I do. I absolutely just think they're wonderful. When I see a coyote that I know is sick or diseased, if I got a chance, I'm going to take him out. I don't care what time of the year it is. I'm going to take him out if I can. That helps the overall population in that you're getting the diseased ones out of the population. Here's another little short clip I want to show you, and then we'll discuss it too. Well, my friends, I did get the sawmill set up yesterday. It's pretty much ready to go. It's all leveled up. But unfortunately, I've got other work that has to be done before I can actually start using the sawmill. I'll tell you about that right now. And yeah, the sawmill is ready to go, but unfortunately, I have to completely repair my grapple bucket. Yeah, I hate to name names, but somebody with the initials JR was using it, and one of the hoses got busted, and he had that replaced. But since then, it ain't working right. The connectors aren't good, and it's leaking oil and all kinds of stuff. So I don't know. I'm just gonna fix it myself, and it's going to take a little bit of money and effort to get it fixed, but I got to have it fixed because I need that grapple bucket for cutting wood this winter, dragging the trees up where I can get to them to cut them up, and then also for putting the logs on my sawmill. So anyway, that's what I'm going to be spending the rest of this morning on is fixing the grapple bucket. And there's a million other things that need to be fixed here on the farm right now. I tell you, I go in cycles and everything. It just seems like when one thing breaks, 14 things break. And there's a bunch of things that are broken right now. Again, it's just nuts how it happens. Let's look at the comments. Dottie Hildebrand was the first one before we were live. Then Dean Barnes, and then the Dirty Knobs, and Bill Webb, and then Clyde Price. Let's see. Clyde says, good morning from Canada's most easterly province. Nasty day here. Wild. And so I guess that's Nova Scotia, I think. I'm going to say that because that's what I think it is. Chuck Highbrenner, good morning from St. James. Yes. And then after we went live, Paul Walton was the first one to check in. And Christia Thomason, and then Kathy Voles. Kathy says she got her CD from me and really enjoyed it. Well, great, thank you. And then the Dirty Knob says, is it a dinosaur? I don't think those were too furry, and they definitely weren't friendly. Let's see. And then Jim Short says, Jerry, are your frost-free yard hydrant spigots connected directly to your home water supply, or are those fed from some separate well? No, they're in line with the home water supply, yes. And they're quite a ways from the houses and things. In fact, they're a long ways. The closest water hydrant that we have connected to our main house is probably 400 feet away, something like that, so it's a long ways away. John Dobermick says, Jerry, the volume is really low on the channel. Okay. I'll try turning the mic up here. Maybe that'll help. It's showing that the signal is going out pretty strong, so I don't know. I just check it there. Let's see. DE, I would be getting the deer tested for chronic wasting disease before consuming, just to be safe. Yeah, we may have to do that. I don't know. Typically, when you spend as much time in the woods as I have, you could pretty much look at an animal and know if it's good, bad, or indifferent. If it's sick or got a problem. you just kind of know by their habits if they're acting right or not. And I'm not saying that I can detect chronic wasting disease. I'm not saying that. But if it's a severe case, I would certainly absolutely know it. Almost for sure. Chuck Highbreder saw a nice 10-pointer yesterday. He says we were 30 foot apart and it just looked at me and then we each walked away. Well, I wouldn't mind seeing a nice 10-pointer. It's going to have to be an awfully big deer before I shoot at one this year. I'm out there with my bow, but mostly, if a nice doe would come up, I would shoot it for freezer meat, basically. But in terms of a buck, it's going to have to be a monster buck before I'm pulling the trigger or releasing in an arrow. Rod Wintler says ringtail cat, not quite late. And Nancy Milwaukee says a lynx. The difference between a lynx and a bobcat, well, first of all, lynxes are typically more northern. They're more like Canada or northern United States for the most part. And secondly, they're a little bigger typically, and they're also probably the thing that you can see the quickest is that the lynx have little tufts of fur on the ends of their pointed ears. And the bobcats don't have that. Let's see. Bill Webb says he's looking for a free meal. See, and yeah, that's what I started to tell you. When I did that doe bleat, I have called in, and that's probably the reason I've seen more bobcats than most people. I have called in lots of bobcats with that doe bleat. They hear that doe and those bobcats, that's ringing the dinner bell to them. And even that little bobcat, as little as he was coming to check it out because it could have been a small deer that he could have taken down, I doubt that bobcat, he looked a little small. I doubt he could take down a big buck. But then again, I could be wrong on that. I mean, if he jumped up and grabbed it by the throat, he'd probably take it down. Even that little guy. You seriously do not know how sharp their claws are. I am not kidding you. Needles are not any sharper than the ends of their claws. I'm not exaggerating. They are that kind of sharp. It's crazy how sharp they are. I don't even know how they get them that sharp. It's amazing. But they really are that sharp. Moving on down. D.E. My former boss runs an outfitter company where he takes hunters out for cougars in the foothills of Alberta, Canada. I think he was featured on Wild TV. Yeah, I've seen a lot of people that have done that, and I of course, have never done anything like that, but I have spent a lot of time in the woods. Did Sue make it to Ohio? Yes, she made it in really fast time, actually, and everything's good on that end. Yeah, junior breaks it, senior fixes it. That's pretty much the truth. I mean, he paid to have it fixed, but again, around here, it don't pay to pay. And that, you believe what you want. You can think, well, I would take it to a mechanic and have it. Well, good luck with that around here. That's all I can tell you. If I don't fix it, it typically don't get fixed correctly. And that's just the bottom line. And that's the truth. Believe what you want. And if you do take it to some place that is reputable, then you're going to pay for it through the arm, like 3-4 times what it should cost. And that's the truth, too. Bill Webb says the volume's not an issue on my end. Well, thanks. Okay. Let's see. And then let's see. I think we've got one last question here. Spike Moto. How long does your chainsaw chain typically stay sharp after you sharpen it? It's really, dependent on a lot of things. It depends on the kind of wood I'm cutting. Depends on whether it's slightly green wood or totally dead hard wood. Most of the wood I'm cutting is very hard dead wood, and that will dull a chain much faster. If you're cutting green wood, it'll stay sharp a long time. You can cut down a lot of green trees. I would say on a dead one, cutting them up, I would say if I cut up three trees with it, that's about as much as I should expect to get out of it, on my big saw anyway. And that's about as good as I'll do. The other factor here is all the rocks. And you might say, well, you're cutting too close to the ground. Well, you can't see the rocks here. They're covered under leaves, and like your limb will be, hanging out there. What looks like it's in midair, and you'll see, and maybe it looks like it's touching a leaf. Well, you go down, and that leaf is sitting on a rock, and it's hard not to hit a rock around here. So. And especially when you're on rough terrain and your feet are sliding out from under you, and it's hilly. It's way hillier in most of these than the camera shows. It's like that especially like that tree that I shot, shot the vine just a couple days ago with the shotgun that you've seen that video. That was on a really steep hill, a lot steeper than that video shows by a long stretch. In fact, yeah, I would say 9 out of 10 of my viewers right now probably couldn't walk up that hill. I'm seriously telling you, it's that steep. It's really steep. So that's why I didn't want to get a Bobcat or a tractor or anything else up there, because it's just asking for trouble. Because, if you get on a steep hillside like that, you can turn over, or you can't stop it, or it wants to roll off, or, it's just asking for trouble. So that's why I took the shotgun. These hills are steep, and so trying to cut firewood on these hills, that adds to the complication and how long this saw is going to stay sharp too. Anyway, let's see. Moving on. Chuck's got one. Will you be in St. James this evening? Is today Friday? Honestly, I thought today was Thursday. Yeah, it is Thursday. So no, I won't be there this evening. I'll be there tomorrow evening. At least according to my computer here, it says it's Thursday, so I'm going to go with that. The Spoken Son says, I got the CD. I won. Thank you. Okay, good. I know I sent him one. Do you all grow rocks? You can bet on that. We definitely have rock gardens. Whenever you till up a garden, it is a rock garden. Yeah, there's just tons and tons and tons of rock. If I could get 1/2 penny for all the rocks on this farm, I'd be one of the wealthiest men in the United States. And that's probably no exaggeration. There's a lot of rock. You can't honestly go out in the yard here to anywhere. I don't think you can stick an ice pick in the ground without hitting a rock. That's the number of rocks we have. I'm serious. It's that bad. I mean, there's a lot of dirt in around it, but there's rock everywhere. And that's why people, when they would come here to my Bluegrass Festival, they were concerned with the rain that they were going to get their campers and motorhomes stuck out in the field. I said, I'm telling you for sure, you're not going to sink that deep. It's solid rock. And nobody got stuck. Nobody even spun a tire, I don't think. So it's that kind of rock. Anyway, I guess that's going to be it. I hope you enjoyed seeing the little furry friend there, the Bobcat. You don't get to see them very often unless you live on this farm. All the years I hunted prior to buying this farm, I bought the farm in '98. Prior to that, I hunted 10 times more back then than I do now. 10 times more. Never once, not ever, did I see a bobcat. When I came here, bobcats coming out your ears. They're everywhere. I saw 3 one day bobcats here. So there's a lot of bobcats around here. Anyway, but like I said, I don't want to kill them all. I have no desire to kill them all. I want bobcats. I want coyotes. I want buzzards. I want all of the creatures. I just want to keep their numbers in check so that the other animals have a chance also. That's going to be the last word for today. Thank you so much. We will see you tomorrow.